Blog Talk Radio.
Michiamo Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit Ineye Ojira Da Medinde Ojira Fo Kwesi Rad Nehem Bata Akan Aquamumaina Maruka Etifimu Ojira Fo. That means greetings to all Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit people, meaning Africans, black people. Today is Ojira Day. My name is Ojira Fo Kwesi Rad Nehem Bata Akan. Ojirapo of the Akwamu Nation in North America. Yet I say we thank you for tuning in to the show once again tonight. A few announcements, of course. Our shows 3 days a week, Joada, Benada, and Awukuda, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern to 11. On Joada, we have Akanfo Nanasom, Monday nights, Akanfo Nanasom, ancient authentic Akan Ancestral Religion. On Benada or Abenada Tuesdays, we have Ojira, which means purification. And on Awukuda or Akuada Wednesdays, we have Egua Marketplace, where we highlight products and services from different Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit business owners and so forth who, have good products and services for the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit community, but also share our ancestral values at the same time. So that's on a weekly basis. What we're going to be doing tonight, we're going to put a couple of links up. And first, let me put the link in the chat room right now. For those people who are on the phone line, if you have a question or a comment, just hit the number 1, and we can see that your hand is raised, so we can call on you. For individuals in the chat room, just you must log in order to communicate via the chat room. All right, so we just want to add a couple of messages to send out. In the meantime, for individuals who are new and some of our frequent listeners, we do have a website, and let me put the website in the chat room right now. Beyond our regular website, I'm going to give you the link to our network. It's Afuraka-Afuraitkait.ning.com, and that's a Ning network. It's on the Ning. It's a cultural network on the Ning platform. So it's a network that we own. So it's similar to Facebook, but it's just a private network that we own, we pay for. So you can join that network, create a profile, interact with other individuals who are studying the same kind of information from not only in various parts of this country, but around the world. Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, African black people around the world who are studying this kind of information, dealing with Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, ancestral religion, culture, and nation building. Nanasom, Amamre, Ama Ancestral, which is religion, culture, and nation building. So you can make a profile. We have forums, of course, discussion forums. People post videos. People post blogs. People, of course, post photos dealing with images, dealing with various cultural motifs and things like that. So it's a way to interact with individuals. It's also a way to find out if there are people in your area or not too far from you who are studying the same kind of information. People sometimes connect, whether it's online or actually connect if they have people close to them, to start study groups and things like that, connect dealing with other cultural events. So it's a way for people to interact and strengthen their knowledge base, and that's why we have that. So it's Afuraka-Afuraitkait.ning.com. So you can join that at any time. We also have the Akanfo Nanasom group, Ancient Authentic Akan Ancestral Religion, the Akanfo Nanasom group on Facebook. And you can, of course, join that as well. And hold on one second. I just want to check some things out here. So, okay, and so we just posted the link for the regular website. Now, the link that we posted, our regular website, is ojirapo.com. ODWIRA F as in free O.com. This particular link is the Nhoma page or the publications page on our ODWIRA website. So it's ODWIRA.com, ODWIRA F as in free O.com / Nhoma, NHOMA.html. That is the Nhoma or publications page. One of the documents we're going to check out is the Anidaho. You can download that ebook because we'll be checking out a portion of that. One particular section of that Anidaho is ANIDAHO. So that's Anidaho awareness. So that's the particular book. That particular text is a compilation of 4 different works that we combined together into one book, and we released that a few months ago. So altogether we have 18 books. We have over 60 articles. To date we have about 40 broadcasts, them between 2 and 3 hours. We also have 49 videos on YouTube. So we have the 49 Blog Talk Radio archives that you can always go to this Blog Talk channel, download those archives of our 40 shows, past shows. We've been broadcasting since May, the end of May. You can always download those, but then you can also go to our YouTube channel, and all of these links are on our regular website as well. And you can download the 49 videos where we have, various aspects of our various publications where we examine the various publications, go into detail, as well as some videos not based on publications, but some of the subject matter where we go into detail about specific things and bring clarification to a number of different topics, all revolving around Nanasom, Amamre, Ancestral, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, Ancestral Religion, Culture, and Nation Building. So we have 18 books, 60-plus articles, 49 videos, most of them average about 2 hours each, and then the 40 broadcast archives, most of them between 2 and 3 hours of Blog Talk Radio archives. We'll be examining our various publications as well. So out of the 18 books, all of the PDF versions of the books, as well as the 60-plus articles, but PDF versions, ebook versions of our books, all of those are free downloads. The softcover versions of our books, we have 13 of our books in softcover in addition to the ebook version. We print the ebook version, the softcover versions in-house, in color on our own printers. We do sell the softcover versions, and they range between, of those 13 books, so they range between $8 and $11. One of them is $8, 6 of them are $9, 5 of them are $10, and one of them is $11. So we have those. We have a deal which we've been recently put on the website, and it's permanent. It's a permanent option for those who purchase a 10-book set, any 10 titles you want, 30% off if you purchase 10. If you purchase the whole 13-book set, it's also 30% off. So if you bought 10, that's normally $96. The actual discounted price is $66 for 10 books. And then if you purchase the entire 13-book set, which becomes like an encyclopedia of ancestral religion, culture, and nation building for you, for your family, you can show your friends and coworkers and so forth. The 13-book set is also 30% off. So you get 13 books instead of paying $123 for 13. It's $86 for 13 books. And everyone who's purchased the 13-book set or the 10-book set or just the books in general, they have been appreciative of and impressed by the content and the quality of the publications. We always get, high regard for what we have released, the information, the quality of the information, as well as the quality of the text. The imagery in the text, we always print in color. Our people need to see those vivid images that our ancestresses and ancestors drew on the walls, painted in papyri, as well as the motifs you find all across Afuraka, Afuraitkait, sculptures, and so forth. They represent these principles or reference these forces in creation and the ancestral wisdom that are passed down through these cultural motifs, as well as what we have produced right here in the Western Hemisphere when we continue to practice our traditional culture and religion and the artistic and cultural motifs that we have produced here, we also have those images as well. So people are always drawn to those, as well as the ancestral wisdom connected to them. So just wanted to give that information out. And we'll also talk later in the show about, we also have the option for those who would like to be Nokwadeko, which just means, it's our term for people who disseminate truth. That's just a term for distributors. People would like to be distributors. Instead of just recommending the books to people and people go to the website and purchase them, if you purchase, if you become a distributor, you basically purchase some books wholesale from us, a minimum of 10. If the wholesale price is 30% off, and then you sell them for full price. So if you bought, if you purchased a $10 book for normally retails $10, you would purchase it for $7, 30% off, and then you would sell it to your coworker, your friend, a family member for $10. You make $3 per book. So that's a way for you to not only recommend the information, get the information out there, but to generate income for yourself, additional income for yourself, or if you are unemployed, to just generate income for yourself, period. We must have a mechanism within our own culture that we can offer to our people to assist in generating income to become employed. A brother or sister comes to us and says, I'm unemployed, I've been unemployed for a while, we should be able to have some mechanism in place where we can offer some assistance. And this is a means by which people can start immediately and begin to just generate income wherever they are. So we're going to get into some more of that. If anybody has any questions about that, of course, you can post questions in the chat room or ask, via on the phone line. All right. So what we're going to do right now, of course, go to the go to the publications page, the Anidaho book. You want to download that. We're going to get into that a little bit later. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to get into this notion of who the Rekitu are and what we're dealing with tonight. So, of course, Ojira in Akan culture means purification. We always say Ojira operationalizes Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, Ancestral Religion. Purification operationalizes Ancestral Religion. So Jida means to purify. Ojira also means a celebration of purification. So the Akan New Year for millions of Akanfo is called Ojira, meaning purification. We just had our 7-day New Year celebration, which was from September 16th to September 22nd. It's always from either the 16th or the 22nd or the 17th through the 23rd, depending on the year. Every year, 7-day New Year celebration in Akwamu Mine, in the Akwamu Nation in North America. So this is our year. September 22nd was the first day of our new year of 13,015. We are in the midst of a 26,000-year astronomical cycle, which can be charted by the position of the Earth with respect to the stars and so forth. So that's something that can be calculated easily. Of course, we do not base our calendar on fictional cartoon characters who never existed, such as Jesus or Muhammad or Abraham or Buddha or any other fake character. They didn't exist in any form of any race whatsoever. Of course, our book, Kukutuntum, The Ancestral Jurisdiction, we detail how those characters were manufactured. We talk about the origins of Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Moses, Aaron, David, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik, Jesus, Yeshua ben Pandera, Isa, of course, Buddha, Brahman, Yahweh, Allah, all of these fictional cartoon characters who didn't exist. They were not black. They were not white. They didn't exist at any time, in any form, in any fashion at all. So we show how the whites and their offspring, when they invaded Afuraka, Afuraitkait, Africa, they corrupted descriptive titles of the deities and personages and added these corrupted titles onto fictional white characters, white little statues and sculptures and so forth. They were trying to manufacture little white deities for us to follow. And it took them thousands of years corrupt the religion. It didn't happen overnight. It took them literally thousands of years to corrupt the religion and get some of our people to start falling for that nonsense thousands of years later. So we go into detail about that in the Kukultuntun and so forth. So again, we don't base our calendar on fictional cartoon characters. We base our calendar just like the yearly calendar is based on the seasons. You can calculate the seasons. You know when the vernal equinox is, the summer solstice, the autumn equinox, the winter solstice. You know it's 365 and 1/4 days. That's something that can be calculated. We can also calculate what is called the Afuraitkaitnit, or the Great Year, which is a 26,000 plus year cycle. We are in the midst of that cycle, hence the year's beginning, 13,000. We're in 13,015, began September 22nd. So, ODWIRA, purification, and a celebration of purification. Jida means to purify, that's the verb. ODWIRA means purification, that's the noun, and that's what it means. That term is not just an Akan term. And this is why the name of our blog talk radio channel is ODWIRA. And we show on our website, of course, ODWIRA in ancient Kamit and Khanit, Nubia. Jida means purification, and Jida also means a celebration of purification. And we show that in the Medutu, in the hieroglyphic writing, to show that it's the exact same term with the exact same function in our ancient culture as well as our contemporary expression of that culture today. Of course, the Akan people, just like many others, we originated in Khanit, which is an ancient title of Nubia. Khan means first or foremost. It also means to count or to reckon. So Akan people meaning a component part of the first Khan people on earth, and the first Khan people to first meaning Khan people, and first to count or to reckon. Khan, to calculate, to reckon. That's what Khan means in the tree language of the Akan people. But then when you look at the language of ancient Kamit, the term Khan means first or foremost, from the beginning, and Khan also means to calculate and to reckon. And the people of Khanit, meaning the first land, the land of the south, the front land, that's a title of Nubia, so-called Nubia, Sudan today. It was called Khanit, or the Khanit land, meaning the first land, and the people called Khanitu, Akani people. And when we migrated from that region and went west and reestablished our civilization in the western part of the continent, we called it Khanit, or Akana, which is Ghana, the empire of Ghana, and we call ourselves Akan or Akani people today. We migrated from the empire of Ghana and went towards the savanna and forest belt, where Ivory Coast and Ghana is today. We reestablished Akan civilization in the forest belt and towards the coast. We were there for hundreds of years, and then some of us were taken from that region, brought to the Western Hemisphere during the Musuo Kessier, the Great Perversity Enslavement, and this is why there are millions of Akanfo, or Akan people, in North, Central, South America, the Caribbean, and Europe as a result of the Musuo Kessier. There are over 20 million Akan people on the continent today. They're one of the largest ethnic groups on the continent, and of course they're in the western portion of the continent, so that was one of the largest groups, and therefore one of the groups that was hit hardest during the enslavement process, and that's why there are many of us who are Akanfo who exist in the Western Hemisphere today, just like there were millions of Yoruba people, and that's why there are many people who are attracted to the Yoruba tradition in the Western Hemisphere, because that's who they are. There are many Igbo people, Ebe and Fang people who practice Vodoun, Mindi-speaking people, Bambara and Dogon and so forth, many people from the Congo. So those are the major groups, large ethnic groups that we were taken from. There were many others as well, but the vast majority of our people coming from the Akan, Yoruba, Ebe, Igbo, Fang, Bakongo, Mindi-speaking people and so forth, and brought to the Western Hemisphere. So we're naturally drawn to these different cultures because these are our cultures. Of course, these are ancient Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit cultures practicing ancestral religion. None of these cultures were part of any fictional cartoon group called Hebrews or Israelites. That's nonsense. Of course, we have proven that conclusively in our work And as we show who these deities from ancient Kamit are, we show that we still worship the exact same deities by the exact same names today, and we still get possessed by these deities today. We still do divination with these divinities today, still speak the same language today that we spoke in ancient Kamit and dealing with the same divinity. So we're getting into all of that today. So that's just to lay the groundwork. So we're going to talk about the Rekitu first, a class of beings in ancient Kamit, and then we're going to talk about their relationship to this whole notion of spirituality and religion. Religion and spirituality are identical. They're the same thing. It's fake religion, which is not identical with spirituality. It's fake religion that is the problem. The whites and their offspring deliberately misclassify false religion. Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hebrewism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, pseudo-esoteric schools, hermeticism, kabbalism, Sufism, Gnosticism, and on, Vedanta, Jainism, Taoism, and so forth. They classify these pseudo-religions and pseudo-spiritual practices with religion. And then they turn around and say, well, there's a difference between religion and spirituality. You have some crackers saying, I'm not into organized religion, I'm into spirituality. And then you have Negroes who repeat that same nonsense. Again, we're just aping or mimicking the slave master. Instead of scrutinizing and investigating what we're really saying, we're just aping what they say, thinking we're sounding deep or revolutionary or something like that. And it's not accurate. Of course, the whites and offspring corrupted real religion. The only religion that ever existed and can exist is Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, meaning African ancestral religion. They corrupted fragments of that, took those corrupted fragments and created entire processes that they labeled religion, deliberately mislabeling that nonsense religion. And this is where you get Christianity, Islam, and all that other pseudo-religions from. So then they label that, and they spend thousands of years trying to force these fake religions on our people. At some point, of course, they see that many of our people, although some of our people have joined on and embraced that nonsense, many of our people, by the millions, are rejecting that nonsense now. So as they see us coming out of these fake religions, they still want to capture us into some nonsense, so they have to relabel something. So they'll say, well, I'm not into organized religion either. I'm into spirituality. To make you believe that they're doing the same thing that you're doing. You're leaving Christianity, you're leaving Hebrewism, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, and everything else, and you're trying to get back to your traditional culture. And they're saying, well, I'm doing the same thing. I'm into spirituality. Forget religion. Notwithstanding the fact that they're the ones who created the fake religions in the first place. Now they create a fake notion of what spirituality is. Pseudo-New Age spirituality. Pseudo-practices, foolish philosophies, talking about unconditional love and all this other nonsense. They have no knowledge of what they're talking about. It's just a new form of fake religion. And then they try to capture the people who left the fake religions into this new pseudo-religious practice, pseudo-spiritual practice. For those of us who don't get caught in that trap, then they try to capture us with something else. They'll give you some UFO nonsense, extraterrestrial nonsense, channeling. They give you they have something for everybody. They're always gonna, if you don't get caught up in that, they'll have sex cult spirituality. If you don't get caught up in that, they have drug addict spirituality. If you don't get caught up in that, they have that dissexual, homosexual perversity. Every time they see that you don't get caught in a trap, they're going to try to have something to capture everybody so we don't return to our ancestral religion. When we return to our ancestral religion, they even have something for that. They try to invade our ancestral religion. Of course, it is spiritually, racially, and cosmologically impossible for any non-black person, non-Afurakanu, non-Afuraitkaitnit, non-African, non-black person to practice any Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, or African ancestral religion, because they don't have spiritually the anatomy to be able to practice that. It's impossible. But some of them try to invade. And when you have Negroes sell out slaves who allow them to come into temples and so forth and pretend as though that they're engaged, and they give them traditional names and give them little titles, the deities, the goddesses and gods, the Orisha, the Abosom, the Vodoun, and so forth, they have nothing to do with the whites and their offspring. They do not communicate with them. The Supreme Being does not communicate with them. The ancestresses and ancestors do not communicate with them. So they're just pretending, going through the motion. And fools who follow along with that, then they get caught up in another trap. The only thing they can communicate with is their dead, criminal white relatives, who they then pass off those little communications from their deceased grandparents, alcoholic grandparents, these little spiritual communications they get from them. They say, look at what the deity just told me. Look at what the gods and goddesses in the Orisha just showed me. And people who are foolish go along with that and say, well, they must have a connection. The spirits are speaking to them. So they even try to invade the ancestral religious practice. Of course, now that people are purifying Jida, we're removing all of these criminals from our practice. People who are already down never embraced them in the first place. But now that people are getting back on track, for example, studying real religion, understanding divine order is comprised of divine law and divine hate. The expansive and contractive poles of divine order is divine law or love and divine hate. Of course, we have our book, Maranechi, Divine Law and Divine Hate. When they understand that, then they understand the repulsive nature of divine hate, the attractive nature of divine law, divine love, and they understand who and what to attract and who and what to hate or repel. Just like your immune system knows which cells to protect and which cells to destroy. Protect the harmonious natural cells, liver cells, heart cells, pancreas, and so forth, so they can continue to live and produce and transfer nutrients and so forth. But then when the certain cells become disfigured and cancerous, and they begin to attack and consume the other cells in the body, the immune system understands that the divine response is to isolate those cells, kill them, and expel them from the body. That's the divinely ordered response to cancerous cells, is to exterminate them. The whites and their offspring are the cancerous cells in the body of black humanity. They are the disfigured cells, that little minority of disfigured entities who became disfigured, and now they seek to consume and destroy all of the healthy cells in their path. We mentioned the whites and their offspring. We're talking about white Americans, white Europeans, white Hindus, white Arabs, white Asians, white pseudo-Native Americans who are just Asians who invaded this hemisphere when we were already here. Non-black people are the whites and their offspring. They are the cancerous cells in the body of black humanity. We have our book, the Okra complex, the soul of Akan, when we talk about the nature of the Ka, and the Ka is the soul, the divine consciousness, that force in creation, that divine force that dwells with you in your head region. In ancient Kamit, it's called the Ka. That's the male version. Female version is Ka'et. In our Akan culture, it's called the Okra. Male version, Krawa, or Okra. Female version. In the Yoruba tradition, it's the Ori Inu, the inner Ori. In Vodoun, it's the Se Lido. In the Igbo tradition, it's the Chi. But that's that divinity that's assigned to you, that dwells within your spirit in the head region, assigned to you by the great mother and great father, Inyamewa, Inyamewa, Amenet, Amen, to dwell with you and guide you throughout your life. The whites and their offspring do not have a Kra, a soul, a divine consciousness. They are spirits without souls. They are therefore spirits of disorder, and of course their behavior, their thoughts, intentions, and actions manifest that on a regular basis, and will continue to do so until they become extinct. So that's the foundation. So they deal with that. They corrupt ancestral religion, manufacture fake religions. When you come out of that, they start talking about spirituality as though it's different from real religion, so that you can say, well, I'm going to go along with them here. and then they start manufacturing all kinds of pseudo-spiritual dogma. Our people have fallen into that trap, and then, of course, atheism is just another white religion. No matter how people try to dress it up, Negroes trying to manufacture new definitions, in reality, atheism is a white-based religion. It is the pseudo-belief or the false belief that there is no divinity. There is no deity. They don't understand the nature of the Great Father and the Great Mother, so they've manufactured this doctrine. The whites and their offspring manufactured that doctrine not because they believe it's true. They know there's a supreme being. They know there's a Great Father. They know there's a Great Mother. They also know that they cannot communicate with the Great Father and Great Mother. Just like the cancer cells that develop in your body, they're no longer living in harmony with the other cells in the body or the body as a whole. You, as the great being, you're the great God in your body. Your organs are the smaller bodies that regulate order in your body. They are the deities, quote unquote, the goddesses and gods within your body. And you're the great God or the great goddess if you're female. And then the cells of your organs are the children. They're the plant life, animal life, mineral life, human life, just like we are on earth. We are cells within the great divine body of the Supreme Being. Once some of those cells become cancerous, 1 out of every 100,000 on average, they no longer are in that same kind of communication with you as the great being. You've already sent your immune system to go and kill them. So it's no longer, I'm sorry that I was a disordered cell, will you let me survive, and all that kind of nonsense. Communication is cut off, they're slated for destruction, and they are destroyed, they are killed. Same thing with the whites and their offspring. They lost their craft millennia ago. So now they're just disfigured cancerous cells moving from one part of the body of Earth, spreading, metastasizing, moving from continent to continent, consuming everything in their path when their development is not arrested. That's white Asians, Hindus, Europeans, pseudo-Native Americans, and so forth. So we understand their nature. They're not able to communicate with the Supreme Being. They know that the only way they could control some of our people, after having been crushed by our people militarily for thousands of years, was to corrupt the religion. It took them thousands of years to corrupt and spread the corruption. And so one of those corruptions is atheism, to promote for political purpose the idea that there is no deity. They know there is a great father and a great mother, but of course they want to promote the idea that they are not. So therefore, our people will not listen to anything spiritual. The only thing we will have to listen to are those who are in control at the moment, and they become, in reality, the master or the deity at that time. So that's the reason they promote the foolish notion of atheism, and some of our people fall out of or walk away from or run away from fake religions, and they run right back into another one, which is just another fake religion with a different title. So we're going to get into all of that today. So the first thing we're going to check out, we wrote a afterword for one of the sisters, Rakit Kajara Nebehet. She has a couple of books. She has a number of books out. One of them is Ra Seki, Volume 1, Ra Seki, Volume 2. She has Ra Seki, Healing Arts Temple. Ra Seki is Kemetic Reiki, so she practices and teaches Ra Seki based on ancestral traditions, dealing with the divinities of ancient Kamit and Afuraka, Afuraitkait, of course, reestablishing an ancient healing practice that came from our people and recognizing that Reiki has nothing to do with our people because it's just a foolish corruption by Asians of something our people have been doing for thousands of years. She was able to connect with our Nsamanfo, Nanonom Nsamanfo ancestresses and ancestors, reestablish that practice of basically laying hands and healing people, which we've been doing forever, and taking it back to what it really is and showing on the walls of Kamit and so forth those practices, as well as in traditional ancestral religious cultures all across the continent and wherever we are in the world. So she asked me to write an afterword in the book, and we were honored to do so. And this, what we're going to read right now, is a portion of that afterword because it's directly related to what we're talking about. And so we're going to get into the etymology of religion, etymology of spirituality, and so forth. So this afterword is dealing with the class of beings called the Rekit, or Rekitu, Rekutu in ancient Kamit. On the Blog Talk channel, and when we send out the event notification, we show images of the Rekitu. So when you're looking on the Blog Talk channel and you see the images fading in and out, you'll see these images, and the ones is two beings with their hands up in a posture of ritual provocation or prayer, bodies of two adult human beings, but they have the heads of birds. And these are the Rekitu. This is one of the ways that they're depicted. Sometimes it's just depicted as regular people, but as you're looking at the channel, you'll see those images. So we're going to read this section. First, we have an image of them. We have a quote from the Runu Pet Imheru, the so-called Book of Coming Forth by Day, misnomer, the Book of the Dead, the Papyrus of Ani. And that quote, it says, when the scribe, Ani is the person who died, so he's talking about his spirit in the spirit realm, in the ancestral realm, and what's happening, when he is going to meet Asar, the divinity Asar, after he makes his transition. So it says, when the scribe, and he was a scribe when he was alive, when the scribe Ani arrives at the seventh arit, or the seventh hall, or gateway, he says, I have come to you, Asar, purified of disordered emanation. You encircle the heavens, you see Ra, you see the Rekitu, unique one, you from the Sektet boat, the boat of Ra, as he encircles the horizon in the heavens. So he's saying once this person dies, the spirit leaves the body, we go before the divinities, the children of the great god and great goddess, Amen and Amenet, and the children of them are the divinities, the deities, later corrupted into little white angels, but the actual forces in nature that animate sun, moon, stars, earth, mother, oceans, rivers, fire, thunder, and so forth, these are the deities, the Orisha, the Abosom, and so forth. Asar is one of them, sovereign of the spirit realm on the male side. So he says he's come to Asar, and he says he's come purified of disordered emanation. When we make our transition, we are quote-unquote judged, and when you see the symbol of the heart being weighed against the feather of Ma'at, if your heart is not so heavy because it's weighed down with disorder, it should be able to balance out the feather on the other end of the scale, and if it balances it out, that means your heart was light enough and free from the bondage of disordered emanations of criminality, lust and malice, and wrongdoing and so forth. If it was light enough, then it will balance out the feather, and then you can move into the ancestral realm and live a harmonious lifestyle amongst your ancestresses and ancestors who have preceded you to the ancestral realm. So your grandmothers, great-grandmothers, great-grandfathers, and so forth who are in the ancestral realm, you go to live with them until it's time for you to return through your descendants, reincarnate generations later back into the world. So Ani, he arrived at the seventh gate, the seventh arit, the seventh hall. He said to Asar, I have come to you, Asar, and I'm purified of disordered emanations. He's declaring the fact that he lived a life of purity. He was purifying himself ritually so he could live in harmony with divine order. And then he addresses Asar. You encircle the heavens. You see Ra. Ra is the creator. You see the Rekitu. And then he says, he calls him the unique one from the Sektet boat, or the boat of Ra, as he encircles the horizon and the heavens and so forth. The key is, why we use this quote, is that he's talking to the deity Asar, and he says, you encircle the heavens, you see Ra, the creator, and in the iconography you'll see Ra sitting in the boat of the Aten. The sun is called the Aten. The sun is not Ra. Ra is the deity. The sun is a physical transmitter of the energy of Ra and Ra'et, the great spirit. So, Ra'et is the creatress, Ra is the creator. Amen and Amenet are the supreme being. They are the grandparents of Ra and Ra'et. So just like you're a being, you can direct your life force of procreative energy to go create a child through your sex organs. You can direct that energy in that region to go create for you. You can direct your energy there. Amen and Amenet, the great being, the great father and mother, direct Ra and Ra'et, the divine living creator and creatress energy, direct them to go out and create. So the supreme being and the creator and creatress are two different entities on two different levels. The creator and creatress are subordinate to and servants of the great father and the great mother, the supreme being. And that's key. So when you talk about seeing Ra, you see Ra sitting in the boat of the sun. You see the big sun disk, the Aten, and Ra sitting next to the sun, sometimes sitting inside of it, sometimes sitting next to it. So the boat is sailing across the sky, and that's just a reference of the sun appears to be sailing across the sky. The sky is like a mass of water, and you have the big solar disk sailing from east to west, and they say it's sailing in a boat. And then you see Ra sailing. So he says, you see Ra, you see him in the boat of Ra, he encircles the heaven. So he's speaking to Asar, the divinity. He talks about seeing the creator, Ra, in his sacred solar boat sailing across the sky. And he also sees the Rekitu, this class of beings, this class of spirits. So let's see who the Rekitu are. Why are they important enough that when somebody makes their transition, they can be seen as well as Ra and Asar and so forth. So we say the term Rekit, spelled in different ways, in the language of Khanit, Egypt, is multi-layered in meaning. The root, Rek, and for the people who can't see the document, and we're going to post this document later. We're going to add some information because this was just the afterword to the book. We're going to add some of the information we talked about tonight, and we'll release it tomorrow. The term Rek is spelled with the symbol, the medut, or symbol, hieroglyphic symbol for the letter R, which is like the open mouth symbol, and then the KH symbol, which is a dark circle. So that's R and then KH. The KH medut or hieroglyph is where the CH letter combination in English comes from, and that CH combination can be pronounced with the K sound, like in the word chrome, the Ch sound, as in the word check or change, or the Sh sound, as in the word chagrin, or as in the name Charlotte. And the reason why the CH combination has those three different pronunciations is because the KH medut or hieroglyph in ancient Kamit has those same three variations as well. So Rek, the root Rek, R, and then KH means knowledge. And we're going to get into some detailed meanings about that. Rekit means one who is wise, knowledgeable, skillful. The Ntorot, or the deity, the goddess Aset, thus carries the title, for example, Rekit, which means the divine wise one. Rek means knowledge. Rekit means one who is wise, knowledgeable, skillful, so it becomes an honorific title for Aset. She's called Aset. She's also called Aset Rekit, meaning Aset, the divine wise one. Referencing her wisdom and skill as a divine healeress. She's a divine healeress. There exists a class of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, Africans, black people in ancient Kamit, and of course across the continent, who were called the Rekitu or Rekut, plural. The Rekitu exists as a group within the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit population, and retain this status upon transition to the ancestral realm after death. That's key because very often when you read about the Rekitu as a class of individuals in ancient Kamit, they don't really understand who the Rekitu are. So if you read about the Rekitu, for example, let's pull up something on the Rekit in ancient Kamit for people who don't really understand who they are. You look on Wikipedia, you look in different areas, and they have various definitions. They don't really know who the Rekit are. So let's see if we can find something real quick just to give one of their false definitions that are very, widespread when being talked about. Let's see. Okay, I think I found something right here. Okay, so one of them, for example, says the Rekit bird, says beings of knowledge, but it's also the populace. Some people say the plebeians. Some people will say, oh, well, the Rekitu are just a certain class of beings. Maybe they were foreigners. We're not sure. We don't know what their function is. Sometimes they're shown as birds, but then sometimes they're shown as human beings. Sometimes they're human beings with the heads of birds. Sometimes they're human beings with the wings of birds. Different things. So there are different papers that are written. They don't really understand what is the role of the Rekitu. So getting back to who they are. They exist as a group within the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit population, and that's shown on the temples showing the Rekitu, but then they retain this status upon transition to the ancestral realm after death. Hence, the declaration quoted above from the Pertinent Heru when we talked about after Ani made his transition, he's an ancestral spirit. He not only sees Asar, a deity, sees Ra, a deity, but he also sees the Rekitu, the spirits of, when they were Rekitu on earth, they were that class of the population. Then when they made their transition, they were still Rekitu. They were just ancestral Rekitu. Okay, so we say the deceased individuals comes before Asar, the Ntoro, or the Neta, the god, who is the sovereign of the ancestral realm, and he notes that by virtue of purification, Asar has taken up his position with Ra, the creator, in the Sektet boat, the boat of the sun. Asar therefore encircles the heavens in this quote-unquote boat of the sun. He beholds Ra and also the Rekit spirit. The spirit of the deceased individual endeavors to be pure and participate in the same process as Asar. Moreover, in the emergence of Sekhmet, which is talking about the origin of the goddess Sekhmet, it is stated that Ra is the, and we put this in quotes directly from the text, creator of men and women and sovereign of the Rekit. So why is the Rekit singled out as a special kind of population within the physical population of the people, but then when they die, they're still called Rekit. They still have that honorific title, even as ancestresses and ancestors. Well, let's look at their iconography first, and then we'll get into why they are who they are. The Rekitu are symbolized by the left-winged bird with hands raised in the act of ritual provocation. When you see the two hands raised up and the palms are facing outward as though somebody is pushing somebody and their palms are facing the deity, that's ritual provocation. It's like if you went and pushed a lion or pushed a pit bull or something, you're provoking them with your energy. Now, of course, the response is you're going to provoke a response and they'll come back and attack you most likely. But that ritual provocation or putting those palms forward is transmitting energy, your spiritual energy, through your hands and projecting it or provoking the energy of the divinity who's in front of the person. Even if they're putting their hands to the sun, we provoke the energy of the sun, provoke a response, and we receive energy back. It's like you provoke an animal or provoke a person by pushing them, you arouse their energy and it's sent back towards you. When you provoke ritually the energy of the divinity, that energy is provoked, and then there's a response, and you receive the energy that has been provoked in a harmonious fashion. So you see the two hands facing forward in a ritual provocatory fashion. So sometimes it's symbolized as the left-winged bird with two arms and human hands. They are also represented in human form with the wings of the bird, or as humans with the head of the bird. We show images of that in the text, and then we have two of those different images as you're looking at the Blog Talk channel right now. You'll see those images floating by, or later on if you're on the phone, when you go back to the channel, when you get back on the internet, you'll see those images. And we have all three. We have one with it's the bird itself with two human arms and hands provoking the energy of the divinity. Then one where it's the body of a human being, but then he has wings like a bird. And then the third one, the body of a human being provoking the energy ritually, but his head is the head of a bird, or her head is the head of a bird. So the Rekit as a sacred, divine bird denotes the capacity of our spirit to enter or fly between the physical world and the spirit realm. The upraised hands not only denote worship, but ritual provocation of the energy and consciousness of the Ntoru, and the Aku, the goddesses and gods, and the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors of Afuraka, Afuraitkait. So when we're talking about ritual provocation, we should note that the definition of what we call Nanasom or Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, African ancestral religion. And of course, when we say Afuraka, Afuraitkait, that's the male and female terms, the original terms for the continent Africa. That's Africa is a corruption of Afuraka. Ka means a land, a highland, a raised land, like a hill or a mountain. The first mound that rose up out of the primordial ocean at the beginning of creation, the highland, called Ka and Kayat, male and female in ancient Kamit. When Ra and Ra'at began to move through that first landmass, their spirit moved through that first landmass to make it vibrant. After it rose up out of the ocean, it was the only landmass of Earth at that point. It became the Ka and Kayat. So just like if you see a mountain or a hill, that's a Ka or Kayat. It's a high land or a raised land. The first landmass to rise up out of the ocean to become the first landmass of Earth, called Ka and Kayat. And when Ra and Ra'at move through that first Ka, their life force energy gives it vitality, makes it vibrant, makes it fertile, increases its fertility. So when they're moving through matter, when the spirit, the great spirit of Ra and Ra'at are moving through matter, they take on the titles Afura and Afuraitkait. Afu means flesh, but it also means house or place of residence. So Ra, when the spirit is moving through matter, he takes on the title Afura, meaning Ra moving through the Afu, Ra moving through matter, through flesh or through the house. Your flesh is Afu, your flesh is but your flesh is also a house, Afu, a place of residence for your spirit. That's why Afu means flesh, but it also means house or place of residence, because your flesh is a house or place of residence. So when Ra, the great spirit, is moving through matter, moving through Afu, he's called Afu Ra. When Ra'at is moving through matter, she's called Afu Ra'at. Say, for example, when the sun is just going across the sky and Ra's animating the sun, that's Ra's just called Ra. When the sun sets and that life force energy is moving in the quote-unquote underworld for the 12 hours of the night, and the divine spirit is moving through matter, Ra becomes known as Afu Ra. And when the sun rises and comes up out of the matter, is back up in the sky, then he's just Ra. When it goes back down into the earth, then it's Afura. So when Ra and Ra'at, the divine living energy, the great spirit, the creator and creatress, began to expand and contract and move through the first landmass, they are moving through matter. So they're called Afura and Afuraitkait. And when they move through that Ka becomes known as the Ka, or the land of Afuraka, the land of the creator, Afuraitkait, the land of the creatress. So we show in our book, Afuraka, Afuraitkait, the origin of the term Africa, the cosmology that gives birth to those terms, and the actual terms in the Medusu, in the hieroglyphics of ancient Kamit, in the papyrus of Ani, in the papyrus of Funefer, in the temple of Al-Set, in Paraka, or so-called Philae. So we show that because nobody has ever shown that before. We found those glyphs and we published them because there's a great deal of misinformation talking about the origin of the term Africa, talking about it comes from Scipio Africanus, which is totally inaccurate. He named himself after he invaded the continent. Prior to that, his last name was Scipio, and his brother's last name was Scipio, and his father's last name was Scipio, and his grandfather's last name was Scipio, and his great-grandfather's last name was Scipio Barbatu. But when he invaded and took over the northern part of the continent, he became known as Publius Cornelius Scipio Africanus. And when his brother invaded Asia and won the war in Asia, he became known as Lucius Cornelius Scipio Asiaticus. So one brother became Africanus, one brother became Asiaticus. Prior to that, their last name was Scipio, which has been intergenerationally for years. And there's many other false etymologies that we destroy all of those false etymologies and show exactly where each etymology came from, whether it's Latin, Sanskrit, Arabic, Phoenician, and so forth. All the false etymologies put forth for the origin of the term Africa We destroy all those false etymologies, show where they came from, show they're actually corruptions of the language, terms from ancient Kamit, and then we show the actual glyphs that show where Afuraka comes from. So that's what we just want to put that out there. So, we talked about the Rekit is a divine bird. Sometimes in the form of a bird, sometimes they show the human being with the head of a bird, sometimes the human being with the wings of that lap-winged bird. And the reason why the human being is wearing these wings or having the head of a bird is a divine bird denotes the capacity of our spirits to enter or fly between the physical world and the spirit realm. We talked about the upraised hands not only denote worship, but ritual provocation of the energy and consciousness of the deities and the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors of Afuraka, Afuraitkait. When we communicate with our ancestresses and ancestors, we communicate with our spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors. Those who are criminals, those who are child molesters or something like that, we don't communicate with them at all. They need to suffer in the spirit realm just like they need to suffer here. Those in our Akan culture, for example, the Nsamanfo are the ancestral spirit. The Nananom Nsamanfo are that class of ancestral spirits who achieved the title of Nananom. They're spiritually cultivated. Those are the ones who we invoke because they lived in harmony with divine order on earth. And when they made their transition to the ancestral realm, they were given the responsibility, added responsibility and capacity to assist us in our spiritual development here because they lived in harmony with divine order, with the Supreme Being. So those are the ones that we evoke for guidance. They give us proper guidance, just like they did when they were on earth. They were spiritually cultivated on earth. They gave us proper guidance so that we can make decisions that are in harmony with divine order, thoughts, intentions, and actions. And when they make their transition, they give us that same kind of guidance to show us how to make those kinds of decisions that will be harmonious based on our spiritual makeup, based on our clan identity. Some people can do things, for example, we have dietary taboos in one clan where another clan doesn't have the same dietary taboos. So you can eat a certain fruit and get sick and suffer, where somebody else in another clan, they can eat that same fruit and there's no problem. So your ancestresses and ancestors of your clan who lived in harmony with divine order can show you what's in harmony for you to eat, whereas somebody else what's not in harmony. Also, behavioral taboos, social taboos, and so forth, how to navigate your way through the world in harmony with divine order based on your spiritual anatomy, based on your clan identity. Only your ancestresses and ancestors from your clan who demonstrated the capacity to do that throughout their lives and become models to emulate, they can show you, so they give us that kind of guidance. And then the deities, the forces of nature, empower us to execute our function. So we're talking about spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors. The Rekit is a spirit medium. This is why they have the head of a bird sometimes. It's showing that they're a different kind of person. They're a spirit medium. They can fly between the spirit realm and the physical realm. They're a spirit medium akin to a form of Okomfo, which is a priest or priestess, a kind of priest and priestess in our Akan culture, and an Elegun in the Yoruba tradition. In Okomfo, in our Akan culture, Kom means, one of the main meanings is to possess. So the Okomfo are the people folk who engage the Akom process, they get possessed by the Abosom, possessed by the ancestral spirit. You see them dancing, they get possessed by the spirit operates through their body and communicates and heals people and so forth, teaches. In Elegun, in the Yoruba tradition, somebody gets possessed by the Orisha, possessed by the Egungun and so forth, and communicate with the people, heal the people, teach, admonish, teach morality and so forth. So a Rekit in ancient Kamit is a spirit medium. Somebody who gets possessed by a divinity, communicates with the divinities, and then communicates that direction to the population. A Rekit provokes the energy and consciousness of the Ntorotu, meaning deities, and the Akutu and Aku, the ancestral spirits, by entering into communion with them. Such communication facilitates spirit possession of various forms. The Rekit thus becomes a human divinatory instrument utilized by the Ntorotu, and Akutu, the deities and ancestral spirits, for the healing and empowering of the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, or African community. Just like we have Okomfo in Akan tradition, Elegun, people who get possessed. Of course, in the South, we call them horses or mediums. They get possessed. You know, when the deity mounts somebody, they say, well, that person is a horse because they get mounted by the spirit. The spirits come through them, lay hands, heal people's cancer and different things. The kind of person who's receptive. In the Yoruba tradition, they call them Elegun, and Akan, they call them Okomfo or Abosomfo, and so forth. In ancient Kamit, one of the titles is Reki. So they become a human divinatory instrument. They're a diviner in that sense, but their body itself is the instrument. Instead of casting shells per se and reading somebody doing divination, adebisa, but their body itself becomes the divinatory instrument, and the deity enters their body, or the ancestral spirit enters their body and utilizes their body to communicate and heal the people. Their capacity to heal not only facilitates realignment of the individual from the disalignment of disease, it also motivates us to rediscover our own capacity to heal and empower ourselves and our families through realignment with the Ntoru, the deities, and the Aku, the ancestral spirits who are connected to us by blood. In this manner, the community reestablishes its footing within the Sesher, the divine plan of Aminet, and Amen, the great mother and great father, whom together comprise the supreme being. In ancient Kamit, the great father is Amen, the great God, sometimes called Amen Ra. That's just a title. The great mother is Aminet, also called Amenet Raet, the great mother. In Akan culture, Amen is called Nyame, and Amenet or Amenat is Nyamewa. And we had a whole show talking about how one of the titles of Amen in ancient Kemet is Ari Amen. And Ariame in ancient Kemet became Oniame and Nyame in Akan, Nyambe in the Loti tradition, Nzambe in the Bakongo tradition, Nzambe in the Fang tradition of Gabon. All across the continent you'll find variations of Ariame, Oniame, Nyambe, Njambe, and so forth. It's Ari Amen. It is not Yahweh. That's idiotic. And the whites and their offspring who first put forth that false etymology trying to associate Nyame with Yahweh is foolish. We give the proper etymology of the fake character Yahweh in the Kuku Tuntun. So we had a whole show dealing with Nyame and Nyamewa, the great father, great mother, with Amen and Amenet in ancient Kemet. So going forward, yet the capacity of the Rekhi, the spirit medium, basically a priest or priestess, a horse, spirit medium in ancient Kemet, the capacity of the Rekhi to become a divinatory instrument of healing is solely dependent upon the receptivity of the Rekhi to his or her Ka or Kayat, soul, the divine consciousness, to the deities connected to him or her, and to his or her ancestresses and ancestors. So, yes, they're a spirit medium. They have that function. Some of our people from the time they're children. Some children just do what they do. Some children, they can see an ancestral spirit walking through the house. They can hear ancestral spirits communicating. They can see discarnate spirits and so forth. They can see the divinities. They can see them manifest in front of them. If you're in a household where people already know about the culture, then they understand this child came into the world to be a medium. We find out who they are, what their function is, give them, of course, even when they're born, they're given a proper name, of course, that reflects that energy. Our names are constructed vibrationally in Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit culture to release those sound vibrations that are in harmony with the emanations coming from our spirit. The specific configuration of energy that's emanating from us as an individual that's unique to us, that combination resounds our actual name. So we attune to that configuration of sound vibrations, replicate it with our voices, and that's the actual name of the person. It's always emanating from the person. So a person, when they find out what their function is, their name is given, of course, and we see a child who's receptive like that, we know what their function is. Of course, in this culture, we've been brainwashed from Christianity, Islam, nonsense like that. So child is receptive. They're told, oh, what you're not seeing anything. There's no such thing as ghosts. Then they think they're crazy. They take them to a psychologist. They put them on medication. Some of them end up in psychiatric wards. We've worked in behavioral health. We've gone to psychiatric wards, and people are not really, many of them are not, most of them are really not mentally ill. Most of them are just receptive to ancestral spirits. They don't know how to sanction or negotiate that stream of communication coming within. They get stressed about it because they can't talk about it to anybody because people will say they're crazy or have labeled them that, and they would rather just to not be able to hear or see any discarnate spirit, so they start drinking, doing drugs and stuff like that, destroying their bodies, or they just decide to check out and not focus on the physical world or their immediate surroundings because it's too painful, so they just focus on something else. And when you see them, their focus is totally away from the present moment. So they look, catatonic and whatever, but when you actually engage them, they let you know what's actually happening. So we understand that when people are involved in the culture, they know if a child or even a young person, adult, they're receptive. Sometimes that receptivity kicks in later, and the people begin to feel and communicate, have clairvoyance, clairaudience, and so forth, communicate with their deceased relatives as well as entities that are not related to them. And that becomes a shock to some people, especially in this culture, but in traditional culture, we know who they are. We incorporate that. We understand what their function is. They become a valuable individual in society because they become a vessel through whom the divinities, the forces of nature, move through to operate amongst the population and teach the population, heal the population. The deities will possess and operate within the human sphere amongst, of course, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, or African people only. So that's the nature of the Rekit. Now, we talked about the root of the term Rekit being Rek, and we said it means knowledge, one who is wise, knowledgeable, skillful, Rek. So let's look at that term, and again, we're going to post this. So you can find this in any hieroglyphic dictionary. It's a number of variations of the term and different meanings, and you'll get a greater sense of what it actually means. Rek, one definition, to be wise, to know, to be acquainted with, to be skilled in an art or craft, knowledgeable, wise, and so forth. Rek with the determinative of the reproductive organs means not only to know or to be wise, but to know physically, meaning through sexual intercourse. So that notion of to be knowledgeable, but also to know someone, meaning with the connotation, meaning I knew them, meaning I fused with them, I united with them, we got married, we copulated, and I knew my spouse. That comes directly from ancient Kamit. Has nothing to do with the Bible when they say the man met the woman and he knew her, meaning sexual activity. That notion comes from the term Rek, with the determinative of the reproductive organ saying to know physically, sexually. That kind of knowledge as well, to fuse with, and that fusion of the male and the female spouses through sexual intercourse, that fusion or knowing, they become one, that's similar to the fusion of a spirit, a divine force in nature, fusing with the person, possessing the person, entering the body of the person to communicate to the human sphere and lay hands and heal and teach and admonish and so forth. So it's a different kind of fusion, but it's still unknowing. When you fuse with your mate, with your spouse, of course, always of the opposite sex, and only Afurakani, only Afuraitkaitnit, African, black, because that's the only real relationship you can have. Anything else is perverse. When you have that fusion, then you have a knowing, you have a oneness, you know the individual, but in a different sense, when the spirits possess and communicate through us and heal and teach and so forth, then that's a knowing because you get filled up with divine wisdom, a force in nature that's divine. So that's there. Then you also have Rek, Nef, which is a version, one known to him, a friend, so forth. Rekit, knowledge, learning. Rek, knowledge. Reku, the known characteristics of a person. Reka, wise, understanding. Reku, skilled workmen, craftsmen, trained mechanics, knowers of the deity. Reku, meaning if you're a skilled craftsman, then you have a knowledge in a certain body of information. If you're a skilled workman, you have knowledge in a certain body of information. If you're a trained mechanic, then you have knowledge. You're a knower. You're one who knows. You're a Reku. And if you're a knower, Reku, Ntoru, that means knowers or knowledge of the Ntoru, the deity. Then the other title, Reku, men, people, mankind, rational being. This is where they get the Reku or the Rekitu, and they say, well, wait a minute. This just has to do with human beings. They knew that Rek means knowledge. Reku means people who are skilled and knowledgeable. But then there was a class of people set aside called Rekitu or Reku, and the Egyptologists don't understand, well, why are they called knowledgeable people? What's the difference between them and other people? So they just, in the dictionaries, they'll say, well, that just means rational people, or men or women, mankind, who are rational beings because they know something. They didn't understand that they're talking about spirit mediums, and that's the basis of their knowledge or knowing. Rakit, a class of human beings in the Duat or the ancestral realm. So you have people who are spiritually receptive from the time they're children and sometimes when they're adults. They get possessed by the divinities. They serve the community as vessels of the divine, Abosom, Orisha, Vodoun, and so forth throughout their lives. When they make their transition, they are still Rekitu. They're still knowledgeable people. They still have that capacity to give the message of the deity to you. So when you go to sleep, that specific ancestor or ancestress comes to you and says, listen, you're out of harmony with order right here. This is why you're suffering in these different areas. This is why your health is suffering, your finances are suffering. You need to get back in alignment with divine order. The specific deity that governs you and your spirit is this particular divinity. This is what you need to do. So they're still communicating with us even in the ancestral realm. They remain Rekitu, still that have that same capacity to be mediums of exchange of information as ancestresses and ancestors, just like they were when they were living on Earth. So that's the basis of that. You also have Rekat, wise woman, Aset, Rek, the god of knowledge in the Duat, or ancestral realm, Rekit, knowledge personified as female divinity, Rekit, a title of Aset, operating through the star system, Sapatit, the wise one. In the Kukutuntun ancestral jurisdiction, we talk about that specifically, Aset, Rekit, Aset, the wise one, operating through the star system, Sapatit, meaning Sirius, the brightest star in the sky. The whites and offspring call it Sirius, meaning the scorcher. In ancient Kamit is called Sapatit. And Aset operates through that specific, that's her shrine in the stellar realm, just like, the river waters of Earth are the shrine of Aset on the planet Earth. Her physical shrine, her spirit animates the star system, Sapatit, so-called Sirius. She's called Aset Reki, meaning Aset, the wise one. She gives birth to her son, Heru, in Sapatit. When that star, Sapatit, or so-called Sirius, moves across the sky and meets up with the star Sa, or also called Horimet, which is Alsar, operating through the star system, Orion. When Orion and Sirius meet in the sky every year, they unite, and then they separate, and then Sirius, that star, goes back towards the south. That's Aset, operating through the star system, Sapatit, going to meet the king of the north, Alsar, in the form of Orion. They unite, and then days later, those two stars separate, and she goes back day after day after day. The star is moving bit by bit back to the south. So Aset, the queen of the star system, Sapatit, meets the king of the north. So the queen of Sapatit, or the queen of Sapa, the queen of Saba, the queen of Shaba or Sheba, goes to meet the king of the north. And then she gets pregnant and goes back to the south and has her son, Heru, in Sapatit. Heru, the son of Alsar. Alsar called Horimet or Shorimet, the king, chief, ruler, Hori or Shori of the north, Met, Horimet, Shorimet. becomes Sholimet or Solimet, and Solomon, he meets with Sapatit or Sapat, Shaba, the queen of Sapa, Shaba. That's the queen of Sheba and Solomon meeting in the sky. Then she's going back to the south. The queen of the south had met the king of the north. She goes back to the south, has Heru in Sapatit, her son. One of the titles of Heru is Pera Reshi, meaning the offspring, Pera of the wise one, Reshi, or Reshi. Pera Reshi, meaning offspring of the wise one. That's a title of Heru when he's born of Aset Reshi, Aset the wise one, Aset operating through that star system. He's Pera Reshi, meaning offspring of the wise one. Pera Reki became Bena Reki, Bena Leki, Bena Lekim, Bena Lekim, as you see, which became Menelik, but Bena Lekim in the Kebra Nagas, Menelik in English. This is where you get that entire story from. So Asar, Aset, and Heru operating through the star system, Sa, Orion, the Patit, Sirius, and so forth. That whole story of the queen of the south meeting the king of the north and returning to the south, pregnant with the child that would become child of the wise one, Ben Alekim. That happens in the stars. It has nothing to do with the fictional cartoon character named Solomon who never existed, and there was no queen of Sheba either who ever existed. Of course, there were queens all over the place, but this queen of quote-unquote Sheba, they're talking about Aset operating through a star system, and that whole story plays out every year. Now, it's key that we said Ben Alekim. There's no letter L in the language of ancient Kemet. There's a rolling R. So the only time you see a letter L is when a foreign word enters the language, when people invade it and they started using the glyphs to write their names. And then if they had an L in their name, we didn't have a letter L in the Medutu in the hieroglyph, so we had to use the hieroglyph for the letter R to represent the letter L. So, for example, when the Greeks invaded and they took over, 332 so-called BCE, 2,300 years ago, the rulers became known as Ptolemies, Ptolemys in English, as it's spelled in English, Ptolemy. There's no letter L in the language. Or, for example, Cleopatra. There's no letter L in the language or in the Medutu, so when they spell it out in the Medutu, once they get to the letter L, they use the same symbol for the letter R. So it's really spelled the rolling R, Cleopatra, and the Europeans would say Cleopatra. That exact same feature you find in the Akan language, which is, of course, derivative from ancient Kemet and Khanit. That's why there's no letter L in the Akan language. You have a rolling R. And the only time you find a letter L is if there's a foreign word that's incorporated in the Akan language and the people still don't pronounce the L, they'll use a rolling R to replace it. So, for example, the word mulatto is an English word, of course, derived from previous that, but the way it's pronounced in English is mulatto. If an Akan person says that, they won't say mulatto because we don't use letter L. We use rolling R, so we say murato or murato, murato ni. That's how it's spoken. That's the way an Akan person would pronounce the English word mulatto. They use a rolling R. It's the same thing in ancient Kemet. So rekit, R-E-K-H-I-T, rekit becomes lekit in, European dialect. They use the L instead of the rolling R. And if you say a rolling R and an L at regular speed, like K-A-L-A, kala, K-R-A is kara, so kara and kara, I just said kara with an R and kala with an L. It's very similar because the rolling R, the tongue taps the roof of the mouth once, and with an L, the tongue taps the roof of the mouth once. It's just a little bit held a little bit longer, but it's very similar. That's why they can be interchangeable. So rekit becomes lekit. That's why Ben Alekit, son of the wise one, is really Tera Rekit. Now, that's key because we're going to talk about the etymology of the word religion, because Negroes will look at Proto-Indo-European roots, so-called roots, and try to derive the word directly from there. We talked about spirituality and religion being identical in the real sense. Where does the word religion come from? Where does the word spirit come from? And we can show they actually do not come from Indo-European roots. They come from the language of ancient Kamit. And we actually just gave you the etymological root of the term religion in this whole presentation we just did for the past half an hour. And we're going to show how. So, if you look at the term religion, first, re. Re is the prefix. It means back or again. So if you have to restart your computer, the root is start. So somebody says restart it, you restart. You hit it, see if it works. If it doesn't work, then say restart. You start it again. So the root is start. Re just means back or again. Where does re come from? If you look in ancient Kamit, the term rer, R-E-R, means to turn around or go around. This is where you get re, meaning back or again. So when we talk about going back, we mean going back around. That's what we mean when we say that's the origin. R-E-R, rer or rir, meaning going around or to turn around. It becomes rer, becomes re, meaning back or again in English, meaning the same thing. But cosmologically, when we say back, we mean back around. So for example, if somebody said the earth goes around the sun and returns to its point of origin, so it made one complete revolution. Revolve. Volve means to turn or to roll, and re means back. So it doesn't mean going back in a straight line, going from one point to another. It's going back to the point in the circle from which you began, because we're talking about circular time, cyclical manifestations of time, not an artificial linear time where you have a beginning point in a straight line and an ending point. We have a curvilinear cycle where you start from one point, go all the way around, and come back to the beginning. The sun rises in the east, sets in the west, and it shows back up in the east. We're talking about circular time, cyclical time. So when we talk about re or going back, we're talking about going back around. So that's the cosmological basis of it. When we say rer or rir in ancient Kamit, it became re in English, and it doesn't always have the same connotation, but that's the origin. So that's just the prefix re. Religion. So the key is, what is the root? It's like restart. Start is the root. To start again. Start back. Religion. To lig back or lig again. Let's look at the jun part. Religion. Just like you have act, then you have action. Act is, what you're engaged in. To act, that's a verb, of course. Action is what has taken place as a result. Ligjun. It's the same kind of concept. So what is the root? Just like you have act is the root, action, the shun is the suffix. Religion, to religion, to relive. Just like you have react, and then you have reaction, you have religion. The root is leg. What does that mean? What does it have to do with anything? To relive something. And if you relive something, you're engaged in the process of religion or religging something. So now you look at the origin of the term lig. So we're going to look at the so-called Proto-Indo-European roots. They don't understand where the term comes from. So they give possibilities, but they don't understand where it comes from. Let's give another example real quick. The term hero in English, they'll say it's one who saves and things like that. They don't know why it means that. They'll just say, well, that's what it means. But they won't trace it back to the actual root. They'll say it has Proto-Indo-European roots and it means one who saves or whatever. But hero comes from Heru. Heru is the deity who saves. He has the capacity to save. He's the one who saves the world from the corrupt rule of Set, restores the kingdom of Al-Sar. He has that title. The H sound is the He sound. It's the sound of vitality, the deity that deals with expansion and contraction of breath. We talked about Hehu and Hehu last night. That's where that H, that huh sound, that breath sound, that vitality sound, and then the R, the R sound, is the spiraling energy of Ra and Ra'et. So the Heru is the one who has the vitality, the Het energy, and the Ra, the spiraling, explosive fire and light energy. He has vitality and fire. He has the capacity to bring that fire and energy to restore order. That's why Heru can save. It's all tied up in the cosmology, and it becomes hero in English. The whites and their offspring don't know anything about Heru being to save, and the H principle and the force of breath and vitality with the H sound and the rolling energy with the sound of Ra and Ra'et. They don't know anything about that. They just know hero or Heru means to save, so we're going to say it means to save. So that's all they can say. But we can say not only does Heru mean to save, he's the deity who actually saves, we can talk about why he saves, why he has the capacity to save, what his energetic capacity is tied up in his name. And when you say Heru, the energy that's released when you release those sound vibrations actually generates that capacity to be vital, expansive, fiery, and to use that energy to restore order. That's something they don't understand. So they can talk about what it means, but they don't know why it means what it means. We have the cosmology and the deities that are the root of that meaning. It's the same thing with the name Amen, that Christians and Jews and Muslims and so forth use Amen at the end of their prayers. They don't know why it means what it means. But we have the cosmology that gave birth to the term and the deities who gave birth to the name. As those spirits move through creation, they generate those sound vibrations. If you have a rope in the form of a lasso and you whip it around in the air, it creates a whistling sound. When Amen, Amenet, Ra, Ra'et, Heru, Herit, Ka, Kayat, when they move through creation, when those spirits move through creation, they move differently. Some have a more fiery, fast movement. It creates a certain collection of sound vibrations in space, in matter. The ones who move slower, more watery, expansive movement, it creates a certain kind of sound vibration we can tune into and replicate with our vocal cords, and that's the name of the divinity. It's based on how they move. They generate their names through their movement. So do we, when we can attune to our spirit. So the cosmology shows that. The divinities themselves manifest that, so we know where the names come from. The whites and their offspring just repeat the name, but they don't know where it comes from. And that's why they're always iffy about the cosmology or the etymology of these terms. So when they get to re, they don't know where re comes from. They just know it means back or again. In Kamit, we have the rare term, and then we have the symbol of the circular symbol showing it's talking about going back around. That's why it means back or again. We actually show the circular symbol meaning and two legs walking, showing it means going back, walking back. So we don't just have the R-E-R. We also have the hieroglyph of the two legs walking back and the circular symbol saying walking back in a circular fashion, going back to the original point. But we actually have the real meaning. When you get to religion or the root leg, here's what the whites and their offspring will say. From Latin, religio, respect for what is sacred, reverence for the gods, conscientiousness, sense of right, moral obligation, all of that. According to Cicero, derived from re-legere, to go through again, in reading or in thought. Re meaning again, legere meaning to read. Also see lecture from the same root. However, popular etymology among the later ancients, Servius, Lactantius, Augustine, and the interpretation of many modern writers, connected with re-legere, to bind fast. Re, of course, would be intensive. And the root leg meaning to bind. So we go to the lecture. The root legere, to read, originally to gather or collect, to pick out. The Proto-Indo-European root leg meaning to pick together, gather, or collect. So for them to read originally means to pick together, to gather, or collect. And later they use that same term, leg, which means to pick together, gather, collect. They also mean to read, because when you're reading, you're picking through, looking at symbols, gathering, collecting them, and getting some meaning out of them. So the word leg, meaning pick together, gather, collect, to say or speak or declare, to read, and so forth. This is where they get leg. So releg. Later relegun or religion, but releg. Just like you have react and reaction, the root is act. Releg, religion, the root is leg, meaning to pick together, gather, collect. The Proto-Indo-European root lek is talking about knowledge, to pick together, gather, collect. When you pick something together, you gather it, collect it, you understand it, and that's their definition of to speak, to declare, to read. All right. And then we also look at the term rely, because it still has the same root. Ligament, to bind, because a ligament is something that binds, pull things together. You pick things out, gather them, collect them. Leg, to gather, to collect, to bind. Ligament, the root is leg, meaning to bind, to gather together, and all of that. So, and then we also show the term ligament just to show it's going back to leg or leg, which means to bind. So this is their root. They say, well, this is where it comes from. Proto-Indo-European promoted language family. Religion is religging, rebinding, regathering, and so forth. And that's what it means. The root is leg, and that's what it is. Why does it mean that? They can't tell you why it means that. Why does it leg mean to read, to, study, have knowledge, and then the root of that really means to gather and collect, pick together, gather and collect. Why does it mean that? They don't understand. They just know leg means that. Now we go back to, remember, there's no letter L in Kamit, so rek becomes lek. And this is the lek, the relecking from religion. Lek. We said the lekit or the rekit is a spirit medium. They get possessed by the aboson, possessed by the orisha. Rek means knowledge, to know. There's a fusion, just like to know a woman or a woman to know a man, because they fuse together, copulate. When the spirit possesses and fuses with the rekit, the spirit medium, the priest or priestess, or the one who will become a priest or priestess, then they gain knowledge of the spirit realm. The spirit operates through them. The deity operates through them. The ancestral spirit operates through them. There's a fusion. There's a binding of fusion, a gathering together of the spirit with the body, and then they can communicate with the person. Even more important, though, we said the rekit or the lekit, the one who lets or has knowledge, understanding, and so forth, divine wisdom. We said they become a divinatory instrument. Just like somebody uses shells to cast divination and read the shell, meaning they pick together, gather, and collect the shells. Well, the person's body becomes the divinatory instrument because the deity gets inside. And therefore, the person can divine, meaning learning what the spirit is saying when they communicate with the spirit. They pick together, gather, and collect the symbols, signs, words, and energy from the deity and give that to the person. They're a diviner. That's a reading. So that's why lek means to read in English. It's talking about divination. The lekit or the rekit is a diviner. They are a divinatory instrument. They are a reader. When you see religion and relegging, and leg means to read, and then it's also the root of lecture, meaning knowledge and teaching and so forth. They don't know why lek means to read, to pick together, gather, and collect so you can understand something. We understand it because the lekit, the lek person or the rekit, they're the ones who get possessed. They're the ones who divine. They pick through the shells. They pick through the divinatory instruments or communicate with the deities. They get the reading or the knowledge from the divinities, from the spirit realm, and transmit it to the people. This is where relecking or rekit comes from. Re-lek, re-rek, and so forth. So this is the origin of the term relegging or religion and so forth. And it comes directly from the rekit and that function of rek, knowledge, and so forth. Now, of course, the whites and their offspring don't understand that. So when a fool says, well, religion is a Proto-Indo-European word and it means to bind, and, we're not into religion, we don't practice religion. Well, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, ancestral religion, in essence, is the ritual incorporation of divine law, the ritual restoration of divine balance. So through ritual, we incorporate those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to harmonize with our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. And through ritual, we restore balance to our lives when imbalance has occurred. So there's an expansive and contractive aspect to ancestral religion. The expansive pole of ancestral religion is to incorporate law through ritual. The contractive pole is to restore balance through ritual. That's the essence of ancestral religion. So when people say, well, we don't practice religion, well, if you're restoring balance to divine order and you're incorporating law, you're finding out what's in harmony with order, rek, knowledge, lek, to learn, lek, to fuse with the divine forces in creation, the ancestral spirits, to know, to come to know, rek. And when you look at the medut for some of the spellings of the term rek, you will find a papyrus that's rolled up and it's bound, rek. And that means that, before we had books, we had papyrus rolls, and when they were bound up, tied up, then just like you have a book covers and the book is closed, we would roll up the papyrus and then put a binder on it and bind it up. So when you see the rolled up papyrus, that means that's a body of knowledge. So when you have rek, R, and then KH, and then the determinative symbol is a bound body of knowledge, talking about knowledge, that means rek means to bind. What is that which is bound? That knowledge is bound up in that body. When somebody gets possessed, then the divine wisdom is bound up or fused or ligamented or leg or bound to the body, and now the person can communicate that divine wisdom in the human sphere. All of that is tied up. You also find the symbol for it looks like a little rope or lasso, which has to do with binding, in one of the spellings of the term rek, talking about lek, meaning to bind, fuse with that knowledge, to come to know, and so forth. So when somebody says, well, religion comes from the root, leger, meaning to tie, to bind, to lecture, and all of that, I'm not into religion, I'm into spirituality, that's a fool who doesn't know what they're talking about. So you'll see these Moors, some of these other individuals. If you want to guarantee to have absolute inaccurate information about etymology, then communicate with a Moor, somebody who identifies themselves as a Moor, because you will always get pure foolishness coming from them. They don't understand etymology. They're totally trapped in pseudo-etymology, folk etymology. They've been trapped for years in the Proto-Indo-European so-called roots of various terms. For years, decades, people never really paid attention to them because they just were very insignificant. With the advent of YouTube, they became, they had a new avenue. People can get on a cell phone, they can talk some nonsense, then they can upload it to YouTube, and now people can watch that. And they can become viral and go around the world. People smuggle cell phones in jail, they sneak and listen, they upload things on YouTube, they listen to people talking about information, very often misinformation, and they believe that they don't have time to go and study and investigate. They're just watching the YouTube videos. So now all of a sudden, after decades, now some of the Moors got this, opportunity to be more viewed than they ever were. They've been around for 100 years, but nobody cared. So, but at the same time that they have this capacity, just like other Muslims and Hebrews and Christians and so forth, that nobody really cared about, gave a damn about at all anyway. They've been around for 100 years. Nobody really cared. Now that they have a little bit more notoriety because of YouTube, and commensurate with that, or in common measure with that, became an increased level of scrutiny. Because in the past, nobody scrutinized them because nobody never gave a damn anyway because nobody paid attention to them. But now that they're on YouTube, now they have some more popularity, but what came with that is heightened scrutiny. And now people are actually scrutinizing what they're actually saying and exposing the nonsense that comes out of all of them. That never happened before because people didn't even have the time to waste even engaging them. But now that they're engaging them, they're exposing the foolishness of what they teach. So for years, they've rested everything on Proto-Indo-European, quote-unquote, roots, not understanding that the positive Proto-Indo-European language, phylum, or family actually has Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit roots, meaning black people migrated tens of thousands of years ago into Europe. We didn't stop talking when we crossed into Europe. So you'll find variations of many corrupt terms when you look at the actual roots, going back through Latin and Sanskrit and going back to Proto-Indo-European. You'll find those Proto-Indo-European roots are the same roots, the consonantal structures that we brought up into Southern Europe tens of thousands of years ago, and you'll find the roots of these various terms in these various European languages, all in the languages of ancient Afuraka, Afuraitkait, across the board. The Moors and these other Negroes didn't understand that. So they rest everything on Proto-Indo-European roots, and they get it wrong every time. So they'll tell you about religion coming from that. They know nothing about Reki. They don't understand that the term relek or lek comes from rek, meaning knowledge, rek meaning to pick or gather through divination, becoming a human divinatory instrument, gaining knowledge directly from the divinities. And this is where lek and lecture and legin and legend and all of that comes from. They understand none of that. Some of them starting to try to catch up because they've been teaching misinformation intergenerationally for 100 years. And now that they've been exposed for not knowing anything, now they're trying to catch up and start trying to look into the languages of ancient Kamit and things like that, trying to find certain things to try to pretend as though they were teaching this all along, and they're still getting it wrong. So there are people going around talking about the origin of the term religion, spirituality. Today, of course, they're being exposed for being totally inaccurate, 100%. So we already went into religion. If you're talking about re-legging or re-legging or wrecking, being a reki, then you're being one of those entities who can receive the spirits of the Abosom, the Nanonoman Samanfo, deities, ancestral spirits, fuse with them, bind with them, pick, gather, and collect that information through divination and give it to the population. Re-legging, reki. Now, so that's ancestral religion. That's part of the process. Well, what is spirituality? Get into the etymology of the term spirituality. Let's see if it's the same thing, if it's identical. Because these fools will tell you, they'll look in the etymology of the word spirit, they get locked into the Proto-Indo-European root of spirit, and it will tell you that it means breath, and they'll say, well, spirit just means breath. Totally inaccurate. That's not just what spirit means. But they don't understand etymology, so they're being exposed. Before we go forward with the definition of spirit, just want to make sure I didn't miss anything in the chat room. Sometimes when we're going through this information, we don't get a chance to stop and look in the chat room at every comment. So just want to scroll through real quick, make sure we got everything. All right. And, of course, at any time you can post a comment in the chat room, question. If you have a question on the phone line, of course, you can always hit number 1 to raise your hand, and we'll see the hand is raised, and we'll, connect with you. All right, so let's look at the etymological root origin of the term spirit. First, we're going to look at the so-called Proto-Indo-European root, and then we're going to show how that was stolen directly from ancient Kamit and show what it actually means. And we're going to give some additional information as well. So, you look at the term spirit, any etymological dictionary, Proto-Indo-European lexicon or whatever, you can find this all across the board. First, it'll say animating a vital principle in man and animals. Now, that part is accurate, but then they'll talk about from the Anglo-French spirit, Old French spirit, directly from the Latin spiritus, meaning a breathing, respiration, and of the wind, breath of a god. This is Latin now. Hence, inspiration, breath of life, hence life and disposition, character, high spirit, vigor, courage, pride, arrogance, all of that. related to spirare, to breathe, from the Proto-Indo-European root space, meaning to blow, and Old Church Slavonic pisto, to play on the flute, but space, to blow. That's important. Space being the root of state, spirit, spiritus in Latin, spirit, spirit in French, and spirit in English. But space, Proto-Indo-European. The way it's written is P-E-I-S, pace, and then the S that precedes that is in parentheses. So you have the S in parentheses, and then the P-E-I-S, space, meaning the root is pace, and then the S is added on. We're going to get into that and why it means that. And it says Proto-Indo-European, space, which is pace, meaning to blow. Before we even go there, we're going to also talk about spire, S-P-I-R-E. A spire, it really comes from the same root in reality, which they don't understand, but spire is a sprout, a shoot, a spike, or a blade, tapering stalk of grass, Proto-Germanic spara, spade, meaning a sharp point. And you can also see spike. All these terms are related. Spirit, spire, just like inspire, but spire is a shoot, a sprout, tall stalk of grass pointing up, a spire, kind of like a spear. This is where spear comes from as well. Spire, meaning send up shoots, like shoots of grass sprouting up. And then spike, of course. Spike means a splinter. Of course, a spike is something that spikes up like a nail. Comes from the Proto-Indo-European root spade, meaning a sharp point, and so forth. So all those are related, talking about something shooting up, coming forth, the spike, the spire, and all of that. But then space becoming spedi, space, sperit, esprit, spirit, and so forth, talking about to blow. Breath, what? To blow, from the Proto-Indo-European root. Remember we said it's P-E-I-S, pace, with the S in parentheses that precedes it, space, showing that the S, well, we're going to get into that right now. Why is that S in parentheses? Because when you look in the language of Kamit, you have S-P-E-R, spare, which is where they get spire, spirit from. S-P-E-R, to come forth. Just like spire means to come forth, to shoot up, just like a spike shoots up. Spire is something that shoots up like a tall blade of grass. S-P-I-R-E in English, send up, shoot. A sprout, a shoot, a spike, a blade, tapering stalk of grass in English, spire, come from the Proto-Indo-European root, spade. Well, spare, S-P-E-R in Kamit means to come forth, to set out. Sperer means to make, to come forth. Spare, S-P-E-R also means, which is spar, aspire in English. In Kamit, spare means to ask, to pray, to entreat. And it shows not only the S, the P, and the R, but it also shows the man with his hands in the same position, provoking energy, palms facing forward, as the rekit, when they're engaged in ritual provocation. It means to pray, to ask, to entreat. Different variations. We have some more variations. To make, to come forth, to act with strength, spare, to arrive at a place, to come. Spirit, a wind goddess of dawn, one of the 12 goddesses who towed the boat of Af into the eastern sky. Spare, to ask, to beseech, to implore, to make a complaint, a prayer, a petition, a request. Spirit, a prayer, a petition, or a request. Again, the person is provoking the energy. Speru, plural, which is petitions or prayer. Speru, a petitioner, a plaintiff, somebody who's petitioning, praying, and so forth. Now the key is spare, S-P-E-R, meaning to make, to come forth, to pray, to entreat, to provoke that energy, to make something come forth. It's S-P-E-R, and it says it is the causative of the word P-E-R. In ancient Kamit, the S, the set, is a causative, which means it makes something happen. So the term P-E-R, paired, means to come forth. P-E-R-T, peret, means that which has come forth. When you put the S in front of it, it's to make something come forth. Seper or spare. It's to make something happen. Just like you have someone is overthrown, like if you overthrow an enemy, the term K-H-E-R, overthrown, care, in ancient Kamit, K-H-E-R, overthrown. When you put the S in front of it, seker, it means to make someone overthrown or to overthrow somebody. It's a causative. It causes something to happen. Care means overthrown. Seker means to make or cause. Set, the overthrowing. Care. So seker. Paired means that which has come forth to, what has come forth, what has been made to come forth. Seper, S-P-E-R, means to make something come forth. Seper or spare, to make something come forth. To entreat. Now, let's look at, since it's the causative, when you put the S in front of it, what is the root? Per, perit. What does that mean? Let's look at what that means. Perit means to come forth. That's why you have pet im heru, the book of coming forth, perit, into the day. Let's look at other definitions of the term per. And then the causative, seper, which becomes seper, spare, aspire, spirit, and so forth. Per, to go out. P-E-R, to go out. To go forth. To go away. To leave. To come forth. To proceed from. It not only says that, and you see the symbol for the P and the R, but to prove what they're talking about, it shows two legs walking and coming out of a house-shaped structure, showing that it literally means somebody coming out of something. So we're going to go further with that. To empty oneself, to flow out, to issue, to come out, all these things talking about coming out, proceeding. Because it means to come out, in other variations, again, you see the the circular symbol, and then the two legs walking out. Peru, because it's something that comes out. What comes forth from the mouth? What comes forth from the mouth is speech. Because anything that comes forward or comes out is per. And to make it come out is seper or spare. But per meaning what comes forth from the mouth, speech. To come out of something and come out of a house, per. Peri, he who comes forth, he who appeared, he who is prominent. That's just a variation. Perit, to exit, issue, that which has come forth, and even an outbreak of fire because it's come forth. But also, perit, pera, meaning offspring, that which has come forth, offspring. Then we go to the final piece, vegetables, fruit, corn, wheat, produce, that which has come forth. Even the term pro, meaning coming forward, to come forward. Pera, that's why we said pera reshi, the offspring, pera, of reshi. That's a title of Heru. Pera reshi, the offspring of reshi, or reki, the offspring of offset, reki, pera reshi, which became bena leshi, or bena leki, or menelek. Pera, or peri, meaning produce, field produce, fruit or corn or wheat or vegetables, anything that come forth from the field that sprouted up, that came out. Remember, spire, which is something that came out, spikes of grass, shoots that came up. That comes from pera or peri, that which comes forward, which came out. But the last piece is the original coming out, which is per, which means to rise of the sun. Per, meaning splendor, to shine, showing the sun disk shining. Perit, the appearance of a heavenly body, or of a figure of a deity or a god or a goddess, celebrated by a festival. When the solar energy, when the energy of Ra and Ra'et spiraling through the black substance of space, that black substance before there was suns, moons, stars, anything else, the great Ka and Ka'et, the black substance of space, that male and female force. When Ra and Ra'et spiraling through that energy, through that black substance, first exploded into fire and light in the black substance and began to spiral through the black substance, carving out spheres of black substance, which would later become stars. Of course, in physics, stars are black bodies. That black substance out there, we always understood was a substance, Ka and Ka'et, a plasma. And we recognize them to be the male and female divinities, Ka and Ka'et, meaning black substance. The whites and their offspring didn't understand that until very recently, and now they used to call it just nothingness. Now they call it dark energy and dark matter because they recognize it is a substance, the plasma. We always understood that. So when the fire and light of Ra and Ra'et began to move through that, exploded into that black substance for the first light that pierced the darkness in the beginning of creation, began to spiral through, expanding and contracting, creating black spheres, carving out black spheres which would later become stars, and the stars would later give birth to planets and so forth. That was the first coming forward. Heta, pair, petit, to make to come forward. Seper, seperi, petit, spirit. Ra and Ra'et are the spirit that come forth. That's the first coming forth. Fruits and vegetables coming out of the ground are reminiscent of the first fire and energy, fructifying energy that came forth out of the blackness. Sound vibrations coming out of the person, coming forth from the mouth, petit, are a reflection of the energy moving through creation, generating sound vibrations. Of course, movement creates sound vibration. So that's the original is the fire and light that first came forth, petit, and made to came forth, set, petit, or speti, sepeti, speti. This is where you get spirit from. And before we go forward, it's 10:57. We'll go a little bit into overtime for those people who want to listen on the phone line after 11 o'clock. You have 2 minutes to call in because the live stream on the, like in the chat room and everything, well, the live stream where you can listen via the internet will cut off in 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes now. So if you want to continue to listen past 11 o'clock, call in 657-383-0635. You have a minute and 43 seconds. 657-383-0635. We'll only go a few minutes in overtime. We're almost done, but we just want to let people know you need to call in now. And for those who stay on, again, please check out our softcover publications. On HOMA page, we have 13 publications again. This is the way we fund our efforts. Our publications only range between $8 and $11 softcover publications, color that we print ourselves in-house on our own printers. For those who would like to be distributors and sell those publications to friends, coworkers, and so forth, you can purchase them wholesale from us and sell them retail and generate income for yourself. And this is also the way that we are able to go around the country and give free presentations, trainings, workshops, and so forth. We don't charge for workshops, trainings, presentations, ever. Anytime we go to any city, it's always free for our people to come in. And then we always give a free copy of one of our softcover books to everyone who attends. And so far we've been able to give away over 350 free copies of our softcover publications. We always endeavor to give away at least one free book to everybody who comes to our presentation, so they can get a free presentation and a free book, so they can leave with something to study and incorporate into their lives. So please support our efforts through going and purchasing today, and may I say we appreciate that. Okay, so let's just finish with this etymology. So we talked about pair coming forth, produce coming forth, anything that's coming forth, pair, petit, the noun version, pair, seper, to cause to come forth, that which comes forth from the mouth, or words, sound vibrations, that which comes forth from the earth, pair, petit, crops, that which comes forth from the womb and the loins is the offspring, Petit, but that which comes forth, the rising of the sun, the manifesting of a heavenly body, that light coming forth from the darkness, Petit, and that is Ra and Ra, the great Petit, Sepeti, the great spirit moving forward. This is why in Proto-Indo-European so-called language family, Pei is the word, and the S is in parentheses as a prefix, so Set-Pei became Sepeti, Esperi, and spirit. It's talking about that which comes forth. That which comes forward, originally talking about the great divine spirit, Ra and Ra. Seper or Spear is found directly in ancient Kamit. It doesn't have Proto-Indo-European roots. We're talking about the same thing. When they come forth, just like with the Lekit, talking about re-legging or religion, when the spirit enters the body and manifests their energy and their consciousness to the human sphere through that divinatory instrument, that person, then they are manifesting. They are manifesting right in your environment. They have come forth. Petit, Sepeti. They have been made to come forth. They are spirits, Sepeti, operating through the Lekit or the Rekit, the spirit medium. This is why Rekit or Lekit and Sepeti is the same thing. This is why religion and spirituality is identical. It's the same thing. When you're engaged, the Rekit, or religging, or rebinding, or fusing with the forces in nature so you can live in harmony, just like nature is harmonious, the movements of the sun, moon, stars, plant life, animal life, mineral life, and so forth. When we get in that flow of divine order, our thoughts, intentions, and actions are in harmony. We engage the religious process, the rebinding process, or the fusing process, the knowing process to come to know or fuse so that we can restore order, so we can incorporate divine law into our thoughts, intentions, and actions, and so we can restore balance when we get off track spiritually through our thoughts, intentions, and actions. So that's what religging is. Religion is Petit, or to make something come forth, to make that divine spirit come forth so that we can restore balance to ourselves. Religion and spirituality is identical. So the fools who have been teaching otherwise have exposed themselves. On one hand, some of these people are lying deliberately because they want to trap you into this pseudo-religious practice, or claiming that they're not engaged in a religious practice. They just follow the laws. Nonsense. They're engaged in pseudo-religion. If you're reading the Bible, you're reading the Quran, you are binding yourself to that nonsense, you're engaged in a pseudo-religious practice. It doesn't matter what you try to call it, a Moor, a Hebrew, or somebody else try to say they're not practicing religion, they're just practicing natural law. You're not practicing anything but the nonsense of the spirits of disorder with fake characters, fake deities, fake personages that never existed. We deal with the actual forces in creation that are tied to us by blood, that were assigned to us pre-incarnation. So when we come into the world, when our spirits are sent into the womb by the great mother and the great father, we are assigned to certain forces in nature. We come into the world with that kind of energy. Some of us are immune system cells within the great divine body. We're naturally inclined to restore order when disorder appears. We're naturally inclined towards protective functions. Some people are healing cells within the body. They're naturally inclined towards healing. Other people are like skeletal system cells within the great divine body. They're naturally inclined towards engineering and so forth. So there's a divine function and relationship to these various things. We get in harmony with order by attuning to Supreme Being through the agency of the Abosom, the Nananoma and Samafo, the deities and ancestral spirits and so forth. So that's spirituality, that's religion. Spirituality is the essence and nature of seper, or coming forth, bringing that energy forth of the divinities, fusing with it is the same as rekit, or re-lekit, re-legging, religion, rebinding, or fusing with that energy and so forth. So that's the reality. Okay, so let me make sure there was no questions in the chat room. Okay, somebody had a message about meat eating. We had a couple of posts about that. There are a couple of different things. So, for example, people tend to couch arguments in the wrong way. They'll say, well, people are not naturally meat eaters. And animals that have fangs and certain form of digestive tract for the meat eaters, the carnivores, is different from the herbivores and so forth. So therefore, that proves that we are not naturally meat eaters, and that's 100% accurate. However, typically when people eat meat, they don't eat raw meat. They take the meat, take it through a process where they transform it into what is akin to a vegetable or close to a carbon or a mineral through using fire, which transforms the structure of it, and then it becomes more like a vegetable or a mineral, and then they consume. If you burn something all the way through and it becomes a burnt crisp, it becomes a mineral. It becomes a carbon, basically. If you don't get to that point, it becomes more like a vegetable or a fruit. It's been transformed. So in reality, meat eaters are not really, quote-unquote, meat eaters, so to speak, because they're transformed. Unless they're going and killing an animal and eating the flesh raw just like a lion, then they're doing that. Now, in ancient Kamit, for example, we recently published or put out a document. We talked about the divine prohibitions associated with deities, talking about staying away from animal flesh. You'll find that in ancient Kamit. We put that out on Facebook. We put it on our website or whatever. You can look at the notes section on Facebook. Divine restrictions or taboos associated with animal flesh. They talk about how the pig became an abomination to Heru because Set took the form of a pig and shot out Heru's eye, and that whole thing about the eye being swelling because of what Set did when he took the form of a pig, and what happens when people eat, pork, and the orbital inflammation that occurs around the eyes because of the parasites and all of that. That's all associated. So that whole divine prohibition against the swine comes directly from ancient Kamit. There's a cosmological foundation for it. It has nothing to do with the Bible or the Quran. They stole that from ancient Kamit. And we have deities talking about why the pig is abomination or quote-unquote unclean. Not just saying it. You only just say something when you stole it from somebody. We have a cosmological foundation for it. When we talk about the eye of Heru and the eye of Heru getting dark and, Set taking form of a pig and shooting out the eye, there's a whole cosmological basis for why the pig became that. And then we also published some information when they did a study of the dietary practices from various mummies from Kamit from the early dynastic period all the way through thousands of years into the end of the dynastic period, and showed that the people were primarily vegetarian, which a lot of people didn't know that. So you have a lot of so-called scholars, even Afrocentric, going around saying, well, vegetarianism is not African. That comes from India. There's no African basis for vegetarianism. It didn't happen and all this other nonsense. And they've been saying that for years. And then not only did we show in the text of Kamit where the deities outlawed certain eating flesh, and there's a cosmological foundation for that, not only did we, as an aside, put forth that study that had been done with mummies showing what people were consuming throughout the dynastic period, and they were primarily vegetarian. But then we also showed cosmologically, even in our Akan culture, and this is just across the board, one of the reasons that people will stay away from it. You kill an animal, the spirit becomes angry. If you don't appease the animal ritually, then the spirit of the animal would attack. One of the ways to avoid that is to not kill the animal, period, and not consume the animal, period. That's a cosmological basis for staying away from eating flesh. So for anybody who says vegetarianism is not African, again, it doesn't matter what they've been teaching or writing about or doing lectures about, they don't know what they're talking about. And we shouldn't be listening to people just because they sound intelligent or, you know, have a little following. It doesn't matter who they are. That means nothing. Whatever they say should be investigated. And when you investigate things, you'll find that many of these people do not know what they're talking about, and it's nothing arcane or, you know, occult about finding the true information. People just typically don't investigate. They just listen to what people say and they just go along with it. And somebody who's a teenager, an adolescent, could simply check a couple of references and find out that these people don't know what they're talking about. So there is a cosmological basis for that. That doesn't mean that some people who ritually prepare meat using fire for one reason or another can't, you know, engage in ritual practice harmoniously. There's a ritual basis for applying fire to meat or cooked food just in general. It's a ritual process whereby we learn from the abosom of how to consume fire by firing up plant life or mineral life for the flesh of animal life through a sacrifice or whatever, containing that fire within the cooked food and then consuming that cooked food as a consumption of fire to stimulate the fire energy within our abra or our ba, our spirit. I mean, you see the ba, the spirit, ba'et as well, female. Sometimes it's a human-headed bird. Sometimes it's showing the bowl of burning incense or fire in front of the bird. That's that life force fire energy. And sometimes one of the ways to stimulate that energy is the consumption of fire. We're not talking about some little magic trick when somebody's swallowing fire, but ritually consuming fire by firing up cooked food and then consuming that fire and so forth. So there are reasons for that, but typically it's most natural to operate as a vegan. So that's just a natural thing. As Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, it's natural for us to eat fruits, vegetables, and things like that. All right, so just want to make sure we didn't miss anything else in the chat room. All right, and then we wanted to deal with the etymology of religion and spirituality and spirit, which we did. We did talk about atheism earlier on for people who came in later. Atheos meaning against or not, theos not dealing with the deity. We talked about the political reasons why the whites and their offspring put forth the notion, the false notion that there's no such thing as a deity. Not because they believe that, they know that's inaccurate, but they were trying to control the minds of our people. If we reject a divinity or deities, then we won't listen to deities. If you have an individual who invade your country and brutalize you, and after thousands of years of fighting them and winning, but then finally they take control of a portion of your country, and they want to remain in rulership, if they can't do that if all you have to do is go into your house, into your bedroom, and go to the shrine and have a sculpture there, and the deity takes up residence or possesses there and communicates with you and tells you to kill the enemy. They can't have that. So they have to make you believe that there are no such thing as any deities, and only individuals that you should listen to are people you can see physically. Everything else is a demon, and the only ones you should be listening to are the people who are in control. So they had to write the deities out of reality. So some people wouldn't go along with that. They manufactured Christianity to corrupt the religion, manufactured Islam to corrupt ancestral religion, manufactured Judaism, Hebrewism to corrupt ancestral religion. All of these fake religions with their fake characters and fake gods to take us away from real religion, which will lead us to exterminate our enemies through divine hatred, which is sacred. They had to write that out of religion, create the fake religion, and say that everything is about unconditional love, turning the other cheek, and all that other nonsense. For those who didn't go along with that, then they create the pseudo-spiritual, unconditional love. We're all children of the Great Spirit, all that nonsense that they try to push now. Some of our people didn't go along with that either, so they give them quote-unquote atheism or pseudo-scientific empiricism. Of course, we are the first scientists because we can attune to the forces in nature that regulate everything and replicate their functions in our endeavors. That's why we were able to build pyramids, temples, orient them towards the stars and everything else, because we could attune to the forces in nature and replicate that in our environment. Whites and their offspring can't do that, so they have to see what we do and then imitate what we do. So we're the real scientists because we're attuned to the actual forces in nature. They can't do that, so all they can do is imitate. So, but they put forth this notion for the people who didn't go for the fake religions, but were still brainwashed. Well, we're going to give you pseudo-scientific empiricism and atheism and make you believe that set of dogma, which is just another fake religion. And a lot of Negroes have embraced, whether it was atheism, pseudo-New Age spirituality, universalism spirituality, pseudo-humanitarianism, accepting all, loving all, hating none, and hate is evil, and a low vibration of energy, and immature, and just an emotion. Totally inactive. They are gods and goddesses of hate, just like they are gods and goddesses of law and fire and the earth mother and everything else. The god and goddess of hate, Heru Behudet and Sechima, Bena and Abena, Ogun and Iyami, Abeni in the Yoruba tradition. These are the male and female forces of divine hate, just like Ma'al and Ma'at, the male and female forces of divine law. So we understand that. So this is the reason politically why they put forth the notion of atheism. Not because they believe it's true. They know it's not true. But they want us to embrace that nonsense. Just like they put forth the notion that black is inferior. The whites and their offspring have been studying melanin for over 100 years, having melanin conferences, a series of publications, meeting internationally, pigment cell conferences, and everything else. Studying melanin. They know that melanin is, and melanin dominant black people are superior, that our melanin is superior to their pheomelanin. They've known that forever. Of course, they continue to put forth the false notion that black is inferior because they don't want us to know the truth. It's not because they believe it. None of the scientists believe that. Just like none of the people who put forth Christianity and Islam and Judaism and so forth, they knew it was all inaccurate. That's why they put it out, to make us believe in that nonsense. Just like they try to make us believe melanin is inferior when they know it's superior. They try to make us believe that atheism is real or intelligent or mature. They know it's nonsense. They just don't want us to plug into our power source. So this is why they do what they do. So that's the reason for that. And of course, etymologically, we don't even have to go into the etymology for theism and atheism because we already know what that means. We need to understand the political reason why they put it forward and stop giving the Achiwadiefo, which we call the whites and their offspring, spirits of disorder, spirits that are divinely hated, abominable, abhorrent, spirits of disorder, spirits without a soul, a divine consciousness, Achiwadiefo. Stop giving them the benefit of the doubt as though they really believe what they're teaching, and they just don't understand. And if we expose them or teach them and show them the way, then they'll come around. They know exactly what they're teaching is a lie. That's why they're teaching it. That's what cancerous cells do. Cancerous cells know that they're consuming and killing the other cells. That's why they do it. It's not like they don't understand. It's not like criminals don't understand that they're engaged in crime. They know what they're doing. That's why they're criminals. So we need to understand that and recognize the only solution is eradication, extermination. So one more question that says, if one has eaten meat all of one's life, how can one become a vegan? Is it a gradual process, and what are the benefits? You'll notice benefits right away with regards to energy, just digestion, mental clarity, a number of different things. It can be a gradual process. You can look at different publications. Also, look, for example, look at our broadcast archives on Egua Marketplace Day, like the very first Egua Marketplace Day we had Dr. Afivi Adiro. She's a naturopath. She also talks about natural foods and everything else. She serves the community as a naturopathic doctor. That includes diet and everything else. She does it from an Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, ancestral religious perspective through that lens, that cultural lens. So she understands about that. You can go to her website. You can listen to that broadcast, that archive, and she was on the show for the whole 2 hours. We also had Mama Mawusi Ashakir on Egua Marketplace. That's one of our archives. She's a natural foodist. They deal with bio-organic farming, natural farming, sovereign food collectives, getting natural seeds that are not GMO, teaching people how to farm organically in the urban areas as well as rural. They have great success with that. She knows about diet. She teaches herbs, has an herbalist certification course, but then just, you can consult with her with regards to diet and everything else. So check them out because they have a great deal of resources, the kind of books and things that you can get that have accurate information. They can show you who's on the right track and who's not on the right track with regards to diet and so forth. So, yeah, check them out. Dr. Afibi Adiro, that was the first Egua Marketplace that we did. And then Mama Mawusi Ashakir. So that's one of the other. She came on like maybe a month and a half ago or something like that. So just as you look through the archives, you'll find those two shows. Great deal of information going into detail about that. And they have their own websites as well. So with the products that they produce and their services, including consultations dealing with diet, herbs, natural healing, everything. All right. So, we thank everyone for tuning in. Tomorrow, we will be back on with Egua Marketplace. We'll send out an event notification for that. And for people who have asked about what our schedule is going to be, travel schedule. So we have the travel schedule for the summer. We went to a number of different places in the summertime. We were in Philadelphia a couple of times. We were in Baltimore, Connecticut, of course, D.C., different places. Virginia, different places. But then we took off, near the latter part of September for our 7-day New Year's celebration. And that was the first time that we hadn't had a broadcast since the end of May. So we had like a week and a half or so, something like that, where we didn't have the broadcast. We just got back on last week. And now we're preparing our schedule for the rest of this cycle, which is from September 22nd to December 21st. So this 13-week cycle, the autumn cycle, Atemet cycle. So we're preparing our travel schedule for that. We'll be letting people know where we're going to be. And let us know if you want us to come to your region. One of the ways that we are able, like we said earlier, to come to different regions and have free presentations for the community is only because people support the softcover versions of our publications. So please support that and share that information, but make a purchase today. Again, we have a 10-book set, which is 30% off, 13-book set, which is 30% off, but you can also purchase one or more publications as well. Anybody who makes a donation of $15 or more, we will send you a book. If you do a recurrent donation, when you click that, check the box that says, do you want to make the donation recurrent, then that means automatically PayPal will, donate on your behalf on a monthly basis on the same date. $15 or more, we will send you a book on the same date every month. So we have 13 books out right now, so at least for the next 13 months, you'll receive a book in the mail every month for the next 13 months. Within the next few weeks, we're going to have a couple more of our publications ready in softcover, so within the next few months, as a matter of fact, we'll probably have up to 20 publications out. So every month, you will at least receive one or more new publications for those who want to do the recurrent. And you can stop that whenever you want to. But even for just people who want to make a purchase, this allows us to teach, give free presentations, as well as free books And we don't charge a speaker's fee when we come out and do presentations. So in order to fund that, we need that support. So we appreciate that support. And also for those who would like to be self-employed through distribution of our work, contact us. You can see on the Nhoma page, ODWIRA, F is in free, O.com, ODWIRA.com. Go to the Nhoma publications page. We have a little video, which is an orientation for distributors. Just watch the video. It talks about 30% off wholesale price. All you have to do is pick the books you want, send us an email, make the payment. Of course, we'll ship the books out to you. And as you're waiting for the shipment to come, of course, you will brush up and read the different books, read through the information, so you'll be up on the information. So when you're distributing it to people, you'll know, the content. Of course, you don't have to memorize everything in the books, but you want to be aware of the content. And that's all it basically is. That's what the video goes over. And then we have a distributor's information document, Quadico, on the page as well, all on the same page, where it gives the details of 30% off for each book, the name of each book, how much it costs retail and wholesale, and all the instructions and everything. A couple of pages, just very straightforward. So that's a way we can employ our people who need income or additional income. We need to be able to have mechanisms to support our people in-house so everybody's not totally dependent on the whites in our offspring to have to even sell books at a white bookstore or do something that they really don't want to do to generate funds. If they can distribute positive information, accurate information that's actually helping people, whether it's helping people with their diet, helping people spiritually to realign themselves. Our training, for example, Akumasa, substance abuse abstinence through ritual practice, where we assist people with that, overcoming substance abuse, overcoming domestic violence, overcoming intergenerational trauma. Those services are free as well. So all of that is funded through your support of our soft cover publications. So again, please support those today if you can. We appreciate that. We will be back on tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern. We will send out notifications. So, Irase, we appreciate you tuning in, and we will meet again. Yebeshia.